Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to my final watch list forecast for this week. I've got 3 pairs on watch going into today, so slightly more than the earlier part of the week. EURCAD Platinum is back on, and CAD Yen. CAD Yen is more slightly softer watch because we know with the yens what happened after market open with the large gaps. But CAD Yen is sat in a nice value area where we could get a quick turnaround. So we want to be obviously on top of that and aware of that. So that is at the moment my favourite yen, where it's going to go either way. We're going to get that message. And as I said, slightly more pairs on watch compared to the start of the week now that they've had a chance to develop more over the last couple of days, few days since market open. Obviously, there's still the whole US government shutdown situation going on, but we are starting to see a little bit more of a clearer message with more pairs, which is a good thing. And it also ties in with what I said at the start of the week or yesterday as well, that you can't afford to switch off at any point through the week because you can come into a Friday when a lot of these pairs have had 2 to 3 days to figure themselves out, and you're now getting some potential entries shaping up on the latter part of the week that you still need to be ready for and as sharp for as you were when you showed up on Monday. So they're the 3 pairs I'm looking at going into today. The DXY, so we can see that we've had this quite impulsive leg on the daily that's now broken and closed above this area on the left. So there's a couple of things that can happen here. We know when we see these large candles, especially in an area, that they can be immediately retraced. So we could see here that although there is some momentum on the daily, and we've had at least 3 bullish candles to the upside, that we would expect some kind of pullback. Now, whether that's going to be a pullback in the form of a continuation to carry on higher and reach for this area, or whether that is a pullback where it's a retrace and it actually follows through, is obviously yet to be seen. The 4-hour, we can see, again, like I explained previously, that with this type of consolidation at an area, with this impulse correction, it's likely to follow through and not just reach the area and turn around immediately. So that has also played out, which is nice because this leg is very similar to the size of this leg, where this structure itself could have actually completed itself now at this point and lines up nicely with the daily being a complete turnaround, and it could break back in, and then we get a similar structure here like we did here, and then we start to see that sell off. What I'm also keeping an eye on, as you know I talk about a lot coming into the end of the week, is the weekly close. Now, if it closes like this, or more, so there's less of a wick, that's a pretty strong bullish sign that there could be more of a chance we do start reaching up to these higher points. If by this evening and by market close the lower time frames have started to break back in, then obviously this weekly candle will close with much more of a larger wick, which will put it on the weaker side, which could then mean next week we do see that follow through to the downside. So I'll be monitoring, like I say a lot, the weekly going into the end of the week to see what that looks like, because if the daily ends up, back down here, suddenly the weekly doesn't look as strong anymore. So I'll be keeping a close eye on what the DXY is doing, not so much through today, but what it's looking like going into market close this evening, to give me a good idea as to where some of these dollar pairs might be positioned going into next week. So we're still sat at that critical point where this could be part of trapping people for the longs, and then we get that break back in, and then before we know it, we're selling back off again. So open to both directions, but I'm just going to be keeping an eye on this through tonight, especially with the weekly close, to see what we're looking like. So it's all still good on the DXY front. EURCAD, so similar to yesterday, we've obviously got this channel that broke the high on the left, this area here, broke the high and has now started to follow through on the daily, and we've impulsively broken through this low on the left. So we're kind of now positioned for a potential play at least down to this base in case that, reverses or there's a deeper pullback from this area, but we can see that's where the momentum come in before. So we could play a potential sell down to this initial base, and if that follows through, then it kind of opens the door up to this next area, and that is a really solid range to play for the sells. So we can already see on the 4 hour, we're starting to get that consolidation building underneath the low here. We've come from an impulse and we've got 1, 2, and now we're looking for that third touch. We've got a base, and now this corrective last leg is making its way up into that third touch. So this is a very simple entry because it's a simple structure. Nice 1 hour size structure continuation. So all I'm looking for is for price to make it up into this third touch area, this kind of ray line, trend line sort of area. And then I can look for a simple 1 hour risk entry, even with a 15 pip stop. You've got good protection above this previous low, which I really like. And then to the bottom of the structure, you're looking at over 3.5 just within the structure itself. And if it makes it to this low before the bigger turnaround, then you're looking at over 4 to 1 just in a short range. And that's a very simple 1 hour structure committing to itself, where you can then manage slightly more aggressively. You might look and say, I'm going to lock 3% in coming into this low. And then if we get that quick turnaround, you're out for free, that's very good. And if it smashes through this, then obviously, as I say, it kind of opens the door up really to this next area below. So this is a very simple trade for me, just a 1 hour risk entry if price reaches this third touch. So it's not far away, but obviously this is top watch for me because it's pretty much developed. We just need that last push, and then I'll look for a 1 hour risk entry at the third touch. Platinum. So I have been keeping an eye on this because we are kind of edging our way up to this next main value area above. We can see here that on the daily, it looks quite bearish because we've had this high test and now we're starting to get this second day of a follow through, but it hasn't really turned around from anywhere important. It's obviously left that gap to the main high, and it's just looking like it's selling off early, which doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of you're going to sell, longer term. This could just be part of a pullback to find a base to then give it that next push into the highs. I'm seeing this structure as a piece of its own, and now we've got this base here, which is separate, that price is now coming into, where we could potentially get an entry to continue to take advantage of the longs into that high. If you pull this price action apart, there's the separate structure, and then you've almost got this kind of channel that's now sold off, reached the 90% rule. So the fact that we're now finding this base here, which is kind of around the completion of this structure, this is still really nice for the fact that price has almost tried to reach the highs. It's failed. It's now come back down to find the volume that it needs at this base to then give it enough strength to head back up to the highs and complete into the value area. So if you play a little bit of the psychology of it, it's almost like this structure was enough to give price what it needed. It's tried to go in the form of a channel which has broken back down, completed at the base, And we're now, as you can see, even on the 1 hour, we're starting to get these wicks through this low where it now potentially could have collected the volume that it needs lower down to now give us that push to the upside. So all I'm looking for here with platinum, this is good signs that we're getting these multiple wicks through, because it's clear at the moment that it's failing to actually break. And this is acting very much as a line in the sand, because we're either going to get a rejection from this area or price follows through. And if it follows through, we know it's most likely going to head at least down to this base. So it keeps it very simple that we're either going to get a turnaround from here, or price is likely to reach down to this point. So what I'm looking at on platinum for today is an impulsive push off of this base, and then we see that lower time frame 15-minute flag where you can look for the risk entry within, or the reduced risk depending on the size of what shapes up, and then play that long up into the highs with the confirmation of the flag that this has acted as a strong enough base with the rejection into the continuation to play that next move. So I'm not looking for a risk entry here because of the momentum that we've had on the higher time frame, where this could just continue down to this low. So a simple strong push off on the 1 hour, and then we can look for that 15-minute structure to confirm the move, and then look to get long up into the highs. So a simple move on platinum, but obviously we haven't quite had the rejection yet from the base. So just wait patiently for that, and once we start to see that strong 1 hour turnaround, then that'll be good signs that we now could potentially start to move into the lower time frame correction, and then we could take advantage of that push up into the highs. And then lastly, CAD yen. So I like this yen pair because apart from this point, the next one is up here, and we're already starting to see some potential rejections on the daily for this to turn around. And we've also got this kind of expanding at play. So this potentially could just be a breakout higher of this structure to tap into a value area for us to then see that sell off. So I like it's got that extra added layer of the expanding structure that kind of keeps this intact for the sells. We're starting to get a bit of a 4 hour breakdown. It's still slightly early days because really it's only this one impulsive candle that we can see clearly has had that strong push, and then we've kind of moved into this sort of price action. We are sat at these small points here, so I'm conscious that either one of these could act as a base for the larger structure to form, and for price to build the structure to actually continue going long. So I'm not caught up in trying to sell within this piece of price action where you can't manage the trade and then price just turns around and builds that structure. All I'm waiting for here with CAD yen is that clear break, and then we can look for the 15-minute flag, risk entry or reduced risk, and play the sell idea. So I just want to see a clear second follow through. So similar to this impulsive leg above, I want to see that again here, and then move into the continuation to confirm much more of a turnaround. And then at that point, the 4 hour will look much better because the 4 hour will then be trading down here. So we've actually got a clear 4 hour leg, and the 1 hour will show us that we've broken out of this piece, cleared this low where we could turn into that, and we've had an obvious 1 hour breakdown, and we can then look for that lower time frame structure to take advantage of the momentum that's then kicking in. So just waiting for that next push, because you can get caught up in these areas to trying to take sells where you can't manage, and then one of these bases reacts for the long. So once it's cleared this range, I'll look for the flag underneath and then play the sell. So they are the three pairs that I'm looking at for today, and we'll see how obviously platinum reacts from the base, and then we get that push up with EURCAD. This is my favourite for that 1 hour risk entry for the sell, and we'll see how they develop through today. Obviously, DXY, we want to see what does the weekly close like tonight, and that will give us a good idea going into next week what potential opportunities we could have on these dollar pairs. So they are the pairs I'm looking at for today. I hope you've all had a good, successful, positive week, that you go into the weekend ready to review your performance, as always, like you hear me talk about a lot because it's so important. Build your fresh watch list to go into next week ready, and I hope you all have a good weekend. So thank you again for all the support this week, as you always show me, and I will catch all of you on Monday morning. Yeah.